Paint found me in the kitchen with news about our next delivery. "It's somewhere warm for once," she said with delight on her scaly orange face. "I can't wait. Sounds like a near desert with lots of bright sun, which makes sense, since the clients are sun-eaters." "They're what?" I asked, nearly fumbling my bowl of stir-fry onto the floor. "There's a species out here that eats suns?" But Paint was laughing at me. "No, just the light. You know, like plants do. They look a lot like plants." "Oh." I tried to act cool and collected as I stirred my food, but I was fooling no one. "That makes sense. They're the ones with flowery faces, right? Lots of eyes and teeth." Paint nodded. "Yes, an uncommon species type, to say the least." "No kidding. We don't run into them very often." I'd only been face to face with plant people a few times. I wondered if Telly remembered the cruel ones I'd stolen her from as a kitten. I hope not. I asked Paint, "Any idea if the clients are familiar with the ways of meat creatures, or is it an isolated settlement?" "Hard to say," Paint said with a frown. "I didn't ask, but it is pretty remote. I'm sure they'll be polite enough at any rate." I sighed. Here's hoping. Sometime later, I was still hoping for the best, as our ship made the approach to a colony world I'd never visited before. I lingered in the door to the cockpit, curious about any details that hadn't been in the briefing. Weo and Captain Sunlight were focused on testing the ship's new bioscanner, which promised to help us locate all manner of clients and hazards in the future. It definitely would have been useful before. "I believe our location is at the edge of the main population center," said Captain Sunlight, tapping a yellow-scaled finger against the screen that showed a map. "We have permission to land on bare ground, so no need to search for a landing pad." "Oh, good," Weo said, with a cheerful twirl of a tentacle. "This place looks like it has more than enough bare ground." It really did. Red dirt and white sand dunes jeweled for territory, dotted with scrubby plant life that rarely reached the heights of the buildings. The oddly roofless buildings, now that we were close enough to see. Some simply had greenhouse-style window roofs, but most had ceilings that were rolled up and out of the way. These plant people really did like their sun. Bipedal figures walked around with limbs like vines, and faces like eldritch flower monstrosities. The scanner picked them out with no problem. Weo took us in for a landing where the captain indicated, focused more on the job than on the scanner. Which was fair. I was curious and not in charge of keeping us from crashing into a building, so I watched to see what else it would pick up. It was set for animal life, including the photosynthesizing kind, so it would ignore any tumbleweeds or whatever, but still catch whether the sun-eaters had pets. Did they keep livestock? I really knew very little about them in general. As we landed, the scanner declared that the ring of flower pots set in a circle outside were in fact animals. I opened my mouth to ask whether that was an error or not. I was pretty sure I saw Lee's, but Captain Sunlight hurried me toward the cargo bay. The clients were already walking over to meet us. I followed her quick pace on my longer legs, glad for the sunglasses I grabbed from my room earlier. I put them on as I walked. When we reached the cargo bay, Paint was already there with the insulated coolers strapped onto a hover sled. My job would be to take them off once they were signed for, since I was the tall one here. The captain didn't strictly need to come outside with us, since Paint could have handled the payment tablet just as well, but I suspected that both heat seekers wanted a few minutes under that blazing sun. It sure was bright. When the bay door opened, I squinted even with the sunglasses. Not as hot as I'd been braced for, though, which was nice. Hot enough for a heat seeker to enjoy, but not the kind of temperature that would make a human dissolve into sweat and sunburns. I pushed the hover sled down the ramp while Paint and Captain Sunlight walked alongside. There was the trio of clients, waiting politely, creepy plant people, who were surely very nice when you got to know them. Captain Sunlight got to handle the conversation. While I waited for my cue to undo the straps, I looked around. There was the circle of flower pots. More sun-eaters were busy moving them from their spots on the ground into carts. A long train of wheeled carts. Huh, weird. Then one of the plants wiggled hard enough to nearly tip itself over, and I realized why the scanner had said these were animals. I felt pretty stupid for not thinking of it earlier. Now my only question was whether those were their own young, or some other plant-animal creature. Captain Sunlight said to the clients, "We'll just set these here then. The insulation will handle a few minutes outside, though if you want the water spheres to stay cool, moving them into shade would be prudent." She gestured to me, and I hopped to it, releasing straps and hefting the coolers onto the red ground. And Paint helped by climbing onto the sled and sliding them to the edge for me. While we worked, the captain chatted with the clients about what we brought them. "We do have space set aside in the cool room," one said. "We want to give the littles some experience with cold things, as well as solid food." "Near solid," added the second. "These are water." The third said cheerfully, "Solid enough to be a new experience. New flavors too. They'll love them, or hate them. Either way, it will be new and exciting." Two of the three looked over their viney shoulders at the train of carts, which was loaded with what I now realized were a bunch of wiggly babies who hadn't learned to walk yet. Of course, they ate via roots before moving on to solid food. Why would I have expected anything else? Quietly shaking my head, I set the last cooler down and stepped back to wait while Captain Sunlight finished talking to the clients. It sounded like there was a possibility of a repeat delivery if their regular supplier continued to have shipping troubles. The train moved forward, pulled by one adult and attended by several others. The most active infant appeared to be experimenting with sticking its legs, into the air, which made two different adults hurry over to make sure it didn't fall out completely. It looked proud of itself from where I was standing. Still perched on the sled, Paint murmured in my ear, "That is adorable." "It really is," I had to agree. Not what I expected to see today at all. "Do you think they take the dirt with them when they start to walk?" Paint wondered. "Like little portable things for when they get hungry?" "No idea, but that's a funny thought. Chompy flower pot shoes. Oh, or diapers." I try not to laugh loud enough to draw attention. Dirty diapers full of actual dirt. On purpose, even. That's a new one on me. Paint nodded sagely. "The universe takes all sorts, especially those that appreciate this level of warm sun." "Yeah, and they probably don't even get sunburned," I said, which led to a conversation that continued all the way back into the ship. Unsurprisingly, heat-seeker scales do a pretty good job of protecting from such things. Also unsurprisingly, Paint was enthralled by stories of sunburns in weird shapes because of pranks or poor planning, the concept of a farmer's tan, and the fact that I could get what amounted to a faint tattoo by simply covering part of my skin and letting the surrounding area get too much sun. She was full of pity for the way the wonderful warm sunlight could damage my poor sensitive human skin, but she was a little jealous when I pointed out I could probably feel the sun's warmth a little better than her.